The border without any prior warning, which is okay. You can close the border in
Dobrý den, vítám vás na německém velvyslanectví.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jaroslav Mašek. I'm editor-in-chief of Hospodářské noviny, biggest Czech economics daily. And I'm very happy to be here in German embassy with Christopher Israngem. Thank you for hosting us. It's a pleasure for us. And I would like to welcome you here on our business meeting with top managers from Czech, from Germany, with top entrepreneurs. And the topics are clear. We have to talk about the economy, about the post-COVID times, and about the experience which we get from that. First, I would like to start with you, Mr. Ambassador, Your Excellence. So how was your last 4 years here in Czech Republic?
It was a very pleasant time. It's very comfortable and nice to stay in this beautiful country. It's not only pleasant, it's also interesting, and that's a perfect combination. It's never boring in Czech domestic politics, it's never boring in our bilateral relations, and there's still so much we can shape and we can achieve together.
What was quite a problem, or what was quite tough times was the last year, isn't it? How was it for you?
Obviously the pandemic, because we lost some time. We are in a very similar situation, the two countries. We are at the heart of Europe. We are surrounded by friends. We cannot ensure the well-being of our citizens alone. We need partners. That's also true for my country, for Germany. We are not big enough. So we need partners. So we are in a very similar situation. Also, our economies are very similar. And still, we are not using our potential to the fullest extent. So there's still some room for improvement. And that's something we have to work on. And that is, of course, a task for our embassy. And unfortunately, we lost some time due to COVID.
And partnership, this is something what we have to talk today. And thank you for coming here. Let's start it.
I'm looking very much forward to the discussion with the experts and with the business leaders, with the citizens. And again, vítám vás na německém velvyslanectví.
Děkujeme. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Now we're live from the German embassy here in the Lobkovicpalais in Prague. I'm Ondřeje Housky from Hospodářské noviny, and as my boss, Jaroslav Mašek, already said, we are happy, Ambassador, that you are hosting us. Thank you for that. We'll start with the interview. The title of our debate is The Czech Republic and Germany Central European Partners on Bumpy Road. Now I'm being told that you came up with the title yourself, which is a bit surprising since diplomats, at least publicly, are known to talk always in superlative terms, that everything is nice and happy and there are no problems whatsoever. Now you are talking about bumpy road. So why is Czech Republic and why is Czech-German road bumpy?
Well, first of all, thank you that you organized this. I'm very happy to discuss these issues with you and everyone watching. Before COVID was about, my standard answer was, it's true, our relations are better than ever, but they are not perfect. There is still a lot of room for improvement. And now, as we see COVID, and the problems connected to that, the restrictions we had to put in place, we are really on a bumpy road. But I'm positive, I'm optimistic that we can get out of this bumpy road and we see the first signs of improvement.
So last year Czech Republic closed the border without any further warning, let's say. This year it was Germany, of course based on data on the ground. The Czech Republic at the time was probably the worst performing country when it comes to dealing with the pandemic, so it was a bit different, but still. So if I understand you correctly, this have left scars on the relationship.
Unfortunately it has. There were some people who were extremely affected by the restrictive measures on both sides. The one group is the group of pendlers, the group of commuters, Czechs that work in Germany, but also Germans that work in the Czech Republic, who had it very difficult to actually reach their workplace and to commute. And some of them couldn't, during a certain period of time, couldn't reach their workplace at all. And the same also is true for many families that were split by borders. And this was painful for these people because they had a very good reason to actually cross the border. But there's more to this, because everyone who wants to cross the border to interact with the neighbor has a good reason, actually. And so we lost momentum in our relations, also on a general level, on a cultural level, on an economic level, because we were able to maintain many things due to video technology and other things. But we lost the time to develop something new, to create new ideas for our bilateral relations, be it joint projects in the economy, in the cultural arena, or wherever. So we now have to make up for the lost time.
A couple of months ago, we had an interview with Patrik Reitinger, who's a researcher at the Bamberg University, who's researching Czech-German relationship in the border regions. And he told us that, for example, between Germany and France, between Germany and the Netherlands, it would be simply unimaginable to close the border just like that without any prior consultations, let's say. And he maintained that this meant that at the political level, at least, because of course the business and economic relations are as deep as always, or were prior to the pandemic as deep as always, but at the political level, the Czech-German relationship is probably not that well developed, as is the case with German relationship to some other neighboring countries. Would you agree with that?
No, I don't agree in this specific case because there were also tough measures with other neighboring countries.
Tough measures, but
general. For example, look at Switzerland, where also couples were divided by a fence and they couldn't reach the spouse. So there were also quite difficult situations at other borders. So it's not entirely specific only to the Czech-German relations. In many cases, it's true that it was the first, for example, the Czech Republic was the first neighboring country that was declared a virus variant area by the German government, with all the consequences for traveling. Because of the high numbers, and of course this was more visible than in other countries. But for example, also take the case of Tyrol, a part of Austria, where also that declaration of an area of virus variants had to be made. The same restrictions actually applied. But I do agree that we, with our Western neighbors in general, leaving COVID aside, we have progressed more than in our bilateral relations with the Czech Republic. So there, for example, take the Netherlands, which is about the same size than the Czech Republic. Also with a very difficult history with Germany, we have progressed more. There's more cooperation, more trust, and so there's something to catch up in our bilateral relations with the Czech Republic.
Why is this the case? Is it simply a matter of time that with the Netherlands, with France, of course, you have had more time to progress, or are there other reasons?
I hope it's a matter of time, but of course we should not lean back. There's something to do. I would say there are two reasons for this. One is on the German side. It's a lack of knowledge about the Czech Republic. Germans not living close to the border just know very little about the Czech Republic, our close neighbor, and they don't know that the longest border Germany has with another country is with the Czech Republic. It's not with France, it's not with Poland, it's by far with the Czech Republic in comparison to those two countries. Also, the Czech Republic is number 10 trading partner of Germany. We import more from the Czech Republic than we do import from the UK. Our trade volume is bigger with the Czech Republic than with the Russian Federation, and most Germans would know. And so they are not aware that how important the Czech Republic is as a partner and as a friend, as a neighbor next door. And that's something we have to work on the German side. And on the Czech side, I think it's still a lack of trust because of history, and that's very understandable. But of course, we as Germans have to do something to merit more trust from the Czech side. And once we have those two things in a better way, I think we will really use our bilateral potential to the fullest extent.
Before COVID, you have, of course, traveled through the Czech Republic, so you probably can say if this lack of trust applies only in Prague, let's say, at the central political level, and not in the regions. I mean border regions, or is this something that's general, which you can encounter? I don't know, also in Tachov, not just in Prague.
I wouldn't make a difference between the capital and the regions. Of course, there are many other differences, other things that are different from the capital in the capital than in the regions, but not in this case. Maybe it's a question of age. I think there is more trust among younger Czechs than among older Czechs, and that obviously also has to do with history. So that is, of course, a task for us, that Germany deals with its difficult past, with all the terror that it committed in the last century, and really lives up to the own responsibility, just to show that we know about this and what was caused by Germans in the Czech Republic, to really show that we really mean it, that Germany of today is different from the past.
You have, a few seconds ago, you have described how profound our economic relationship is, how important it is. However, what's going to happen? Will all go back to normal, or will some decoupling happen? Because businesses have seen that from one second to another the border can be closed. Pendlers could have not crossed the border anymore. Will this lead to some relocation, to shortening of the supply chains? Let's say that German companies in the border regions will look for employees in Germany and not in Czech border regions, for example, or this would be an exaggeration?
Well, I think we should ask this question to German business representatives.
You are talking to them, so you know.
But my impression is that there is not such a danger, because there's still high confidence and, of course, a high appreciation of the quality produced here, and also the level of engineering by Czech engineers. So I think it's really taken account of by the German companies, and they really want to stay. And of course, there's also the hope that things continue. Also, one has to say that goods could continue to move relatively freely between the two countries. There were some hiccups, I think, at the beginning with some supplies from northern Italy, for example, at the beginning of the pandemic. But I think in general, most of the trade has continued. There were some setbacks, obviously, as in general. But I'm quite optimistic that in the medium term there are no major problems connected with that.
You said it yourself that even before the pandemic there had been a room for improvement, let's say. Another headline you put into our debate is, do we fully use our potential? And as every journalist knows, when you use question in an article, the reply is no. It implies a negative reply. So there, of course, there's a room for improvement, and we don't fully use our potential. But can you be more specific? What can we improve in which part of our relationship? Is it more on a political level, and where exactly? Defense, for example, there are many possibilities. Or can we improve anything in the economy, given the fact that the relationship is so deep?
I guess the experts, they have an excellent cooperation. They know the other colleague on the other side. There's a very close interaction. So the police officer from the German side and the Czech police officer working together in the joint center in Schwandorf or Petrovice, they have an excellent cooperation. Also the soldiers on a foreign mission in Afghanistan, in Mali, I think they really trust each other. They have really a high level of cooperation. But it's still sometimes difficult to to do a bigger project together. So when it comes, for example, to military integration, military structures, with our Dutch neighbors, we have reached much more. So it's quite normal that there is a German battalion that, or even a regiment, a bigger unit that is commanded by a Dutch officer, and the other way around. And that still taking into account the difficult history, and that's we haven't reached this level yet. So we have an affiliation of a Czech brigade to a German division, but there would not be in usual structures back home in Czech Republic or Germany a Czech general commanding a German unit, or the other way around. And that's not because the soldiers, the officers don't want to, but there's still a lack of political will to do so, and that has to do with the general impression in the societies. So that's something we need to work on.
Do I understand you correctly that Berlin would love to do much more, but Prague is not that interested or not that willing to do it?
Well, as I said, it's a problem on both sides. It's on the German side, it's lack of information. So we have to present these ideas to move forward, and to think of our closest neighbor with the longest border, as I said. And on the Czech side, we have to earn the trust that it's a good idea to have such a close cooperation.
To what extent is this a language question? Is language a problem?
Of course, it's a barrier. That is true.
Because you have, you have, for example, with France, you have bilingual classes. Of course, you have that also with us, but probably it's not that developed.
That's unfortunately true. There are less Germans who speak Czech than French, for example. But there are many young Czechs who learn German, so that's a very positive development. And we are slowly improving also our offer to German students in German schools of Czech language. But that's something to work on. But I think the experts, they, for example, in the military and the police, they also speak English, so they can communicate in English if they don't speak the language of their colleague.
Actually, that was my question when I asked about a language issue, because we hear a lot that especially for our politicians, language issue means English language issue, not just German language issue. Have you experienced anything like that in Prague?
Well, in Prague,
for example, in which language have you talked to our finance minister?
Well, then we have an interpreter, obviously. That's helpful, but that's also due to the lack of Czech on my side, on that level. And but for example, if you take the police officers in those joint police directorates, they speak German, or they also speak Czech from the German side.
Obviously, we're also partners in the EU, not just partners when it comes to neighborhood. How do you assess the possibilities and willingness to engage on that level?
I think there's also room to improve. We just had the German EU presidency. We're going to have the Czech presidency, and there are many talks going on behind the scenes, so that we share our experience with with the Czech presidency team, and that's very helpful for both sides. And we have the strategic dialogue as part of our bilateral relations. That's the format for our governmental cooperation. And the idea of a strategic dialogue is, of course, not only to improve bilateral relations, but also to come up with joint projects for the European level. So a Czech-German initiative, we have had that, but I think more is possible. We had, for example, the forestry strategy of the European Union is originally a Czech-German initiative by the two ministers, presented to the other member states in Brussels and adopted, and that's something we need to do more, because our countries are quite similar, located in the heart of Europe with a similar economic structure, so I think there's room for joint initiatives.
Czech Republic is well known for its Atlanticist orientation. We stress the no matter which government is in power, we stress the importance of NATO, of our relationship with the US. The same is valid for Germany, at least with the current government. But at the same time, both our countries are far from spending 2% on defense. Czech Republic is much further from that than Germany, of course. Is there a contradiction?
Well, I think it's due to a similar situation both countries are in. We are, as I said, in the heart of Europe, surrounded by friends and partners. All our partners, our neighbors, our EU or NATO members, if we leave aside Switzerland. So there is no imminent threat perceived by our population. And that, of course, makes it more difficult for politicians to actually convince the public of spending more for defense. But that's something certainly on the mind of both governments, because we have to do our share in the alliance, and that's a topic that is probably going to be discussed in Germany, but also in the Czech Republic with the two new governments after elections.
Recently I've encountered a prominent German businessman, let's say, or CEO active here in Prague, who told me that many German businesses are now reluctant to invest in Hungary because of the rule of law issue. They simply don't trust the Hungarian justice system anymore, and to a lesser extent this is also valid for Poland. Have you encountered anything like that related to the Czech Republic?
No, I haven't heard about these kind of comments from the German business side. There, of course, one has to say there was a survey by the Chamber of Commerce, the Czech-German Chamber of Commerce, and there were more concerns than before about governmental bureaucracy, digitalization, but also corruption. More concerns. Not on a very high level, but more than in previous years. But I think for many German companies, the Czech Republic continues to be an attractive place for foreign direct investment. But of course, it will also depend on the future government in the Czech Republic to send these messages, you know, that foreign companies are welcome.
Last year there was a big dispute, let's say, inside the EU regarding the rule of law conditionality on the spending of EU money, especially from the next generation EU, from the new recovery fund, let's say. Germany, together with its closest partners, was in dispute with Poland and Hungary, if I can put it in this way. And Czech Republic was, let's say, non-committal in this issue, or was not criticizing the principle as such, but was not publicly, at least publicly, relying on Hungary and Poland to yield. How do you remember this situation in terms of the rule of law, which for many politicians in Germany, and not only in Germany, is really the key issue right now? Is the Czech Republic perceived as an ally or not?
Of course, rule of law is at the heart of the European idea, of the European Union, of European integration, so it is very, very important. It was a difficult time, that is true. There are some new mechanisms that were introduced also during the German presidency that were applied for the first time, like a monitoring system where those critical issues are raised. And so these things are very important. And but of course we still have to respect, of course, the role of every member state. And also keep in mind that maybe in Germany there might be an issue that might be of concern to other countries.
Another key issue for Germany, for others that will probably become more and more prominent, is the fight against climate change. now Czech Republic with Poland, with some other member states, is much more reluctant, or is saying let's not be too hasty, let's not do too much, otherwise people might revolt. We saw what happened in France with the Yellow Vests movement, etc., etc. To what extent do you take into account those arguments? Because on a political level, not much, I would say.
Of course, it's important to take note of these feelings and fears, because then, of course, this goes back to the change we need, and change can be difficult to adjust to. So it's something we as governments have to promote, we have to explain, that's one thing. But we also have to encourage our population to take this seriously with certain subsidies for certain products that are better for our climate.
Before COVID, Angela Merkel was about to come to Prague. It was May 2020, I think. The visit was foreseen to take place in May 2020. Now, it's probably not very realistic that before her term ends, she'll visit Prague again, right?
Well, when I was last on the phone with my colleagues at the Federal Chancellery, they told me that the Chancellor is still very cautious because of COVID. And for the time being, she is focusing her travels on multilateral summits like the G7 summit or NATO summit or EU meetings that just took place, and that she is still not making any plans for bilateral visits. And of course, we in the embassy hope that she has a chance to do a farewell tour before she leaves office, and also to come here, but we will see. Certainly, she has a very special relation with the Czech Republic because of her CV. She spent quite some time as a postdoc student here in the Czech Republic. So she has many personal friends here. So I think she will have many reasons to come back to the Czech Republic also as a private citizen.
Until the 6th of January, until the occasion when the mob attacked Capitol Hill in Washington, our Prime Minister Ondřeje Babiš on his Twitter account had this red Trumpian baseball cap on his head. In his profile picture after the attack, he changed the photo. Now, in Berlin, I think the reaction towards Trump's politics and Trump's policies was quite different. Anyway, what changed after the US vote? Is it just rhetoric? Because of course rhetorically we love each other again, but has anything changed on the ground? Tariffs are still in place. I'm not talking about the Airbus-Boeing dispute, but when it comes to steel and aluminium, the tariffs are still in place. TTIP is an impossibility. Everyone knows that. What has changed?
Well, first of all, it's certainly up to Prime Minister Ondřeje Babiš what he puts on his head, and I wouldn't recommend him to get a haircut like Angela Merkel. That wouldn't probably fit too much. Of course, there are new opportunities now with the new U.S. administration. In issues like climate, for example, there is a new momentum that we can use. Also to strengthen the multilateral order, and that's something that is dear to Czechs, also dear to the German government, and that's something we need to engage with our American colleagues.
Will we have a common policy towards Russia?
I think there have been a lot of proofs that we actually do have a common approach towards Russia, be it the European Union or NATO. There were clear declarations after Wilbetitze, for example. Also, there were some strong reactions after what happened in Belarus with the airplane. So in many cases, also after Navalny was poisoned, there was also a big unity among European partners and across the Atlantic. So we have to continue this, and where we haven't reached a unity, for example, now on human rights in China, for example. We need to work on this, and that's why we are in touch with the castle, with the Prime Minister, to find ways how to ensure unity.
And in Germany, is Russia seen more as a threat or as a partner?
I think just like the Czech society, there's a split in this German society. There are some Germans that still have a lot of trust also in the current leadership in Russia, but there are many who are very critical because of what happened in Ukraine, in Georgia, with Mr. Navalny and things like this. And the second part is certainly growing, and unfortunately Russia did a lot to speed up this tendency in the past 6 or 7 years.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Thanks for this interview. And now let me ask 3 other prominent guests to join us. From my left side, there are Vladimír Dlouhý, President of the Czech Chamber of Commerce. Welcome.
Thank you.
Tomáš Jelínek, Director of the Czech-German Fund for the Future. And Karsten Schnáke, Member of the Board of Škoda Auto. Welcome. Now, you've listened to the interview. Let me ask my first question to Mr. Dlouhý and Mr. Schnáke, because it's a, let's say, economic one. Do you agree that as regards commercial ties, as regards business, Czech-German relations are, or not do you agree, it's a question, are the relations, let's say, flawless, or do you see room for improvement? Because Ambassador was talking more about the political level, where he sees a room for improvement. When it comes to business, is everything okay, Mr. Dlouhý?
Well, if you are a small open economy, which exports 85% of its exports to European Union and more than 30% of these exports to one country, Germany, it's such an important relations that there is always room for improvement. There is no doubt. It's I would say, a unique situation in this respect. And let me also remind of additional fact. We always speak that the future, short-term future of the Czech economy depends on Germany. But via Germany, we are exporting a lot to 2 other economies, which is China and the US. Maybe it's not directly seen on our figures, but indirectly. So Germany for us is a huge partner, and there is probably in some areas space for improvement. But compared to what Ambassador mentioned, for instance, if there is a chance that a German regiment will be led or commanded by the Czech colonel or vice versa, as apparently seems to be the case in the German-Dutch relation. I don't know. I'm not in a position to comment it, but I would say that the Czech-German economic relations are, in this respect, much smoother. And Škoda is an example, despite the fact that I hope that one day I will see again the situation that this is going to be the Czech manager who is going to become a CEO of Škoda.
Or all Volkswagen Group, right?
Or yes, why shouldn't be just restricted? So why not of the Volkswagen Group? There is a space for improvement, maybe even outside the everyday economic relations in the climate change policies, etc. But I will comment it later. And just last comment: isn't it your example? German-Dutch military relation. Is it a problem of Czech-Germany, or is it a problem of Central Europe vis-à-vis Germany? Can you envisage a Polish colonel commanding a German regiment?
Well, we have to improve both. Absolutely true.
Mr. Schnáke.
If you ask me, so after 1 year where I can really proud work for this fantastic Czech company Škoda Auto. And when we are now looking back for more than 30 years of this partnership, where Škoda Auto is part of the Volkswagen Group, I would say it's an extremely good relationship. So, if I'm looking to my colleagues and to how also my colleagues at Volkswagen looking to Škoda, I've often heard the word is a pearl of the group. And so Škoda in the last couple of years is, I would say, not only a German, Czech, it's a European success story, and taking over more and more responsibility also for the whole group in different countries like India, like Russia or North Africa, where we are now taking the responsibility for the group, for all brands. I would more compare it like a family. If you ask me after such 3 decades, yeah, there are a lot of topics you have to discuss, you can fight for, and you are something which you have to deeper discuss. But at the end of the day, I would say it's really a perfect relationship and a good success story. And if I'm, because this was your question, looking to this so-called bumpy road, I don't see really a bumpy road between the Czech Republic and Germany after that, let me say, 12 or 15 months of Corona. For me, from the perspective of something who is doing business, is more or less a question how Europe are positioning and learning about the last couple of months. Because Europe as a community and as a business community also are really struggled with these closed borders and with the restrictions we have in the last couple of months. I think a lot of decisions made to protect the people, and absolutely right. But on the other side, we have to look that Europe as a community with values on one side as a community, and on the other side for the business are affected by a lot of restrictions, so that experts cannot go and ramp up production lines, let me say, from France or from Germany, in Hungary or in Czech Republic, or Czech experts from our partners not can go to Romania or to Hungary to ramp up. And these restrictions are really a big issue from my point of view, for us as Europeans. So we have to learn from that. But if you're really, again, asking me, after 1 year now working in Czech Republic, I would say this is really a good relationship we have.
Well, allow me to comment just to make the discussion to be a little bit more vivid. I can't agree with you more on the European issue, on your European remarks, but at least my feeling is, and I'm Deputy President of Eurochamber, which is our Brussels umbrella institution for all the European chambers. I would love to Germany to be a little bit more vocal against some of the Brussels let me use the word restrictions or recommendations, where I believe that sometimes, at least this is perception from here, doesn't have to be necessarily my personal, but definitely of the Czech business people. This is the more of the Franco-German, power group of the 2 biggest economies who decides, and all the rest is leave to take what has been decided. And this is, of course, exacerbated by the fact that British are out now. So I agree with you, but I would love Germany to be sometimes more vocal in defending the business issues. But at the same time, I understand that, for instance, there is a difference between the priorities of the Czech electorate, especially the younger people, and the German electorate, as to the climate change and other issues, corporate governance, due diligence issues.
I fully understand you. I fully understand you and support what you say. From my point of view, is something I do not know what your meaning is, but from my point of view, if you ask me, I would wish. I think it's not so far away from what you say, that business and society are coming a little bit more closer again together. From my point of view, and I think could be something what you mean for addressing. I have many times the feeling that our political and society-oriented issues are more and more far away from what business aspects are. Hopefully we are getting closer to that. And then we as one society, and to that belongs also the business sector, addressing more of these things. And then I think completely agreed with it.
The European Parliament is the best example.
Ambassador, what do you think of that? I heard something about Franco-German couple running the show. You cannot agree, right? Well, because you're a diplomat.
I didn't use that word.
Sure, but I'm a journalist, so my job is to simplify and exaggerate.
Definitely.
I think, well, this picture paints a picture like if that there was a joint position of France and Germany on many questions, but often that is not the case. In many cases, we come from opposite directions. And in many cases, the German position is much closer to the Czech position than to the French position. And that's, of course, a source for cooperation between Czech Republic and Germany. But at the same time, it also, as we come from different angles in issues like industry policy and financial matters and many other economic questions, if those two coming from different sides together and find a compromise, that's something that is quite helpful for the European Union as a whole, because there are other countries that also have either a position closer to France or closer to Germany. And so what those two countries come up with as a joint proposal is quite helpful to find a compromise on a European level in the end. And that's what I think is meant by a Franco-German engine, and it shouldn't be understood as something those two ganging up and trying to decide and impose their will on the others.
Now back to Czech-German relationship. Tomáš Jelínek, you're dealing with on a daily basis. Do you agree that there's quite a lot to improve, that there's, let's say, lack of knowledge on the German side and lack of trust on the Czech side?
First of all, let me thank you for the invitation and also for the opportunity to broaden a little bit the focus of the debate, also to include non-economic issues, because I think these have been a little bit neglected during the whole pandemic era. So thank you for this. And actually, if you look at the impact of pandemic on the Czech-German cooperation in these areas like youth exchange, culture, civic society, then the picture at first glance is not such catastrophic as we expected, and because I can say that only 15% of our projects were cancelled, 40% were postponed, and almost half of all these projects could be implemented. So I think that it's a very important thing to know that this potential was used also during the pandemic. Of course, not every area was affected the same way. Youth exchange or partnerships between cities were more affected. Surprisingly, the culture was tough enough, and because a lot of organizers were able to change the format, to change the date, and to implement their projects, and just areas like publishing of publications or renovating of monuments in the borderland. It was at least not so much affected, and but I think that there is of course a negative impact of the pandemic in the way Mr. Ambassador said that. I think there are just, and I would say especially in the borderland. I think the borderland is something like a litmus test, and there are still, actually we are organizing a small public opinion research with the Institute STEM and the German company Politics, focused on the borderland. And we have only first general preliminary findings, and I can say that we can see there are still, or there are, these old prejudices are back again. Germans are, I think, for Germans are the Czechs some kind of danger, bringing the disease, or just these old fears. I think it started with the fear taking the jobs, or bringing the drugs, or so on. And then this is some reflex which we could observe during the pandemic. And on the Czech side, I think many of the respondents were talking about some kind of being arrogant and so on. So and I think it's always connected also with lack of knowledge and lack of trust, and that's why we, as a future fund, always try to bring the people together and to find some common interest, because without a common interest, it has no sense to come together.
To elaborate on what you've just said, and let me ask the question both to you, Tomáš, and to the ambassador. To what extent is the past still present in your work, let's say? How often do you hear about Nazi occupation and German designs to rule Europe again, and the transfer of the Sudeten Germans on the other side? To what extent does the past harm the current relationship? Ambassador.
It plays a role. I mean, also the Future Fund has many projects connected with Holocaust survivors, for example, or the restoration of a former Sudeten German churchyard, for example, as a joint project. And I think it's good to deal with these things, because then you better understand, and without, of course, comparing and taking into account the sequence of events, and not forgetting about what caused what. But I think these are difficult, painful issues, and on both sides, and we have to deal with them and should not ignore them and pay tribute to these things. But maybe I can just link the Future Fund with the discussion we had about France and Germany. The Future Fund is really a success story. It's the perfect instrument because it brings together Czechs and Germans. I think 600 projects per year that are funded by the fund, and that really enables Czechs and Germans to meet and to better understand. And this success story was actually copied then later on by in the German-French, Franco-German relations, in the Treaty of Aachen, when there was a new civil fund introduced that followed the example of the Czech-German Future Fund. So this is a real success story.
Does the past still harm the relationship?
I think it's always weaker and weaker, and according also to these new findings, it's not such a problem more, but what makes me nervous is that there are new stereotypes also within the young generation, connected more with the Eastern Europe, you know, with that now we can see something like the Iron Curtain again in the head, but also among the young generation. And I think it's also connected to this lack of knowledge and unfortunately also in big German media. I think you can still find not very differentiated articles about the Czech Republic in big German medias, like It started, I think, with the interpretation of this face mask last years ago, that it's something what is necessary because the healthcare system in the Czech Republic is so weak that it's no other way to do it. And it was totally wrong as an interpretation, but I think it was just this black and white perspective to Eastern Europe. And I say Eastern Europe, but I hate it. It's Middle or Central and Eastern Europe, but this differentiation is also often not a part of this. So I think there are another challenges than the tragic history.
Let me quote a well-known Czech historian, Professor Jan Rychlík, who once said that there are only 3 types of people that even now still bring the past to the political debate: survivors, and it's understandable, we have to respect that; idiots, and people who are paid for that, and we have to ask who's paying, in which interest they are doing this. Vladimír Dlouhý wanted to react.
To the third group, I would also include not people only who are paid for that, but who would like to use this platform to promote their own interests, usually political ones.
Sure. Sure, exactly.
Let me make very short 3 comments. I very much agree. Plus, I believe, by the way, we haven't cooperated in the past much. I appreciate what the fund does as a person, as Vladimír Dlouhý. So I will not comment, but to the past, one remark from the Czech side. I will not discuss the reasons what happened with the explosion of the Sudeten-German after the war. But we on the Czech side, we didn't manage well the economic consequences of that fact. We didn't. Neither in the communist times, even after '89, we are struggling. You learned how difficult it was to, even in your former GDR, with all the big transfers. 1 year of transfers in the 90s from the old Bundesrepublik to the former GDR was more than Czech GDP annual. And still, you have a problem. It was difficult, but we did not manage the economic consequences of the explosions of the dam. Second, what would improve, and let me speak now as an economist, if the German investors, and again, let's be frank, especially 30 years ago, the difference in technology, in grasping the models of productivity, were incomparably better in Western Germany than in that time Czechoslovakia. I know something about it, with few exceptions. Nuclear energy, maybe also automotive, but some other. But in general, it has been perceived. So this is not the case so much, but what would, from the economic point of view, improve the trust is if all German companies indeed invest and reinvest here with the purpose to increase domestically generated value added, to increase the productivity, competitiveness, and the technological level. And this, I must say, and again, I'm old enough to remember a lot. Škoda is at the forefront. Škoda is best among all the German companies, but not all the German companies do it. And we know how the discussion about taking out the dividends of the foreign investors, etc., how the populists can use it. So if everybody of the German investors follows the example of Škoda, it would be much better. And third, as a matter of fact, yes, there is a past, but I very much noted when Mr. Jelinek spoke about young people. I'm afraid that both our societies, both German and the Czech, more German, but Czechs are going to follow this youth over the next 5 to 10 years, will be divided along completely different lines within the society than the past and present. And this division we see in today's Western Europe. We see it explicitly in the United States, how divided the country is there. And I'm afraid that this is going to happen here as well. We have the Pirate Party, which is here as well present. Very glad to have them. And I'm glad to have them in the country. But they represent a certain way of thinking, certain way of forecasting the future, and certain way of policy formation, which is so different, let's say, from my own world, that I have a problem to grasp it. And there I see more the dividing line.
Let's go back to business issues, Mr. Schnake. When it comes to automotive, green is the new black, and everyone is investing in electromobility or in green mobility. Škoda Auto, of course, as well. Now, in the Czech Republic, many politicians at the highest levels even are, let's say, disputing the need for this transition. To what extent is this harmful for your business, and to what extent are you happy with what government plans to do as regards, for example, subsidies for electric vehicles, etc.? Or what would you need, to put it differently maybe, because subsidies are not in place, but what would you need?
Hopefully I'm not always too optimistic, but let me say to this topic also, I have really a very optimistic view, I have to say. And when you are looking today to our business, because you are asking for that, no? I think it's also, and coming back to what you say, to invest money as a company in Czech Republic. No? When we are looking for this changing societies and the mindset in the society, because I think the industry at the end of the day, as a part of the society, is also responsible for sustainable societies and for a sustainable future for the next generations. And I think when you are taking us as an example, and not only Skoda, also all partners around us, which are supplying parts, which are supplying goods and developing. We are developing, yes, today, as I would say in the first wave of this CO2 neutral mobility as a part also of the society. A lot of our products, like the new Enyaq, you know, today for countries, for example, like the Netherlands in Europe, like Norway, which are, let me say, in the electrification and CO2 neutral mobility, one step forward if you are looking to some other countries. But what I see is that, and I have a lot of discussions also with politicians in the last couple of weeks and months for the electrification for the Czech Republic and for the sustainable future here. I see a lot of movements, positive movements, no? So that the way of thinking is now really on the move and is really changing from my point of view, if you ask me, because due to all what you're also asking for, and what is, I think, the whole mindset that this is a little bit more conservative, restrictive, I would say it's really now changed dramatically to a much more greener and sustainable future, also in the mindset of the people which are here responsible to put the right, let me say, decisions on the street for the future. And when you were speaking about green mobility or CO2 neutral mobility, and I think it's good that you say this about how much we are investing in this country, in the Czech Republic, no? Due to this way of mobility belongs at the end of the day also that you have a clear connected vehicle, that you have the mobility, green mobility means also connected. So you need the charging network, but you need also the data network. What I see here in Czech, and we have a lot of partners, especially in the development sector and in the software sector, Czech companies which are, and I think this is really an extreme high value here in the Czech Republic, this agile spirit. Where a lot of people are asking for, and you find it here in a lot of startup software companies and things which are developing here. So I feel really this on an extremely positive view to make this way in this sustainable future, and together with all these companies, the right mindset I think is also now on the government and on the political side.
Let me a little bit counter, not as a critical, but counter-argument. Have a look here, it's in Czech. We have one question in Czech.
It will come up later.
On the screen. No, but I'm going to just use the first sentence. The salaries or the wages, but they use the word salaries in the Czech Republic are approaching the German ones. That's not true. The real wage 15 years ago was in this country below 40% of the German real wage. Today, is 44, 45. While the gap in GDP was closed substantially GDP per capita and other macroeconomic indicators. The real wages were converging much more slowly. And I'm not here following the push from the trade unions to increase artificially the wages. But this is the proof that we were not being able to invest either domestically or with the foreign investors enough to the high value-added productions which would allow the companies to pay the higher wages. We still are a relatively, I don't want to use the word low wages, but middle wages country. Maybe you don't see it in Škoda, because you are Škoda. But in other areas, it is. And that's why I'm so much underlying the issue of the investment and increasing the value added. Because without that, we will not be closing the gap in the real wages as quickly as the society would like to see.
And let me elaborate on what you've just said, because something Germany will watch very carefully is the Next Generation EU, the recovery plan that every member state sent to Brussels. And now, after the evaluation of the European Commission, any member state can object. Now, Germany or the Netherlands will probably be very watchful. Chamber of Commerce criticized quite strongly the government plans, and this money should serve to what you've just described, to let's say put our economy on a more sophisticated level. From your point of view, we are not very good at it. We are not very good in using those money, right?
On the government level.
Because your press release was quite critical.
On the government level, no, definitely. I was part of the discussion, but only part in the first half, let's say from September to December, January. Since then, it was fully in the hands of the government. Indeed, there is a need to have a green content and to have a digital content, but still I believe that we very much plan to use this money for infrastructure, nothing against that. We need to improve our highway network, etc. But this money, as you say, should be indeed implemented to generate more higher value added economy here. But it's not only about money, whether it falls like manna from the heaven or whether it comes from Brussels or from the domestic resources. It's also about the conditions for the business, it's about the education, it's about the system, how you are able to find the interface between the research and application in the industry. And here, maybe I'm not very happy to say, but there is a lot to learn from the Germans as well, or still.
Before going
maybe
to the...
I'm too pessimistic. You even look at me as if I was more critical to the domestic things than you are, or you are so polite, I don't know.
No. But when I can say this in the same way, and really for me also, and I'm only, let me say, I have the chance to be a guest in your land, in your country, not only the Czechs can learn something from the Germans, I think the Germans can learn a lot from the Czechs also. Excuse me for this optimistic view of that.
I don't doubt it. In many areas definitely.
Yeah, was it yesterday? 2 days ago, Germany lost its opening match in the European Championship, and we won. So maybe times are changing even in that respect. But
they have slightly different challenge than we.
Yeah. Their opponent was slightly slightly stronger, of course. Before starting the Q&A, Ambassador. Angela Merkel and Emmanuel Macron last year did something unprecedented with the, of course it was proposed by the Commission, we all know that, but it was unprecedented, the recovery plan. Now the plans are coming in, and we already hear lots of doubts how the money will be used, if they will just be spent like that, or if they will really improve the economy, because the goal of the project is not only to recover from the coronavirus, but also to it's recovery and resilience, to strengthen the resilience. Okay, I should ask, how confident are you that this will not be the case? You're a diplomat, you say that you're quite confident, but please try to answer differently.
First of all, the basic idea is, I think, not only to rebuild what was there before Corona, but to build back better and to use this chance actually to have some changes that are making us fit for the future. And obviously we are not alone on this planet as Europeans, so we have to prepare for our competitors. And some of the things we have to change, and we should use this money. But again, change is very difficult and can be painful. So I think in many countries maybe it's more comfortable just to rebuild the same thing that we had before, and not to go to the painful path of actually modifying our structures and the way we do business and we have our societies.
That of course remains to be seen now, ladies and gentlemen. We have time for your questions. If you have one, please raise your hand and please introduce yourself in order for our viewers to know who's talking. Thank you.
Michael, I'm head of the Saxon Liaison Office here in Czech Republic. Thank you so far for this interesting discussion. I'm wondering just about one point. You spoke a lot about a lack of knowledge which exists on the Czech side, on the German side, about the neighbor. I'm wondering, insofar as there are so many public and private institutions, organizations, governmental institutions who are working on the Czech-German relations since many years, since more than 30 years, if I'm talking since the fall of the Iron Curtain, and all the companies, the chambers and so on, are doing so much for this Czech-German relations. And it was also a successful story so far, and we had also something to solve during Corona. So my question is, so what can we do for the future to improve this knowledge on the Czech and the German sides about the people on the neighbor side? So what can we change? Should we more involve the civil society? Should we work on the marketing on this Czech-German relations? Or what other ideas can we do for the future? Thank you.
That's probably for the ambassador and for Tomáš Jelínek to answer.
Maybe I start. Well, thank you for the question. And obviously the two neighboring federal states of Bavaria and Saxony play a crucial role in our bilateral relations, as they are responsible for many aspects of our daily life in Germany, be it schools and be it others. So they have done a great part in developing our bilateral relations. I think in general we have the right instruments at hand in our bilateral relations. The Future Fund is of course a very important one, but we also have the Diskusní Fórum, the civil society platform to exchange views on many things, and we have the strategic dialogue with this new instrument of an ad hoc Abstimmungskreis, a video conference that can be called in within a few hours, to make sure that we are well aware of the things that are about to happen, and also to coordinate them in a certain way. But the public reach out is of course something that has to be broader than just the governments, obviously. And so the Future Fund is crucial in this because they finance meetings of Czechs and Germans, and in many cases Germans participate in these meetings that otherwise would have never traveled to the Czech Republic. And so we need to continue this work. Of course, we need some patience there as well. But I also see that there are new initiatives in Munich, for example, in the Bavarian Parliament, with the proposals from different parties how to improve Bavarian-Czech relations, and also in Saxony, the same thing is taking place. So I think we have to increase non-touristic meetings that will build trust and create knowledge.
Tomáš Jelínek.
Yeah, thank you for the question. It was over the weekend. I read an interview in Hospodářské noviny with Francis Fukuyama, and about his 30 years old. This is of the end of history, and I was wondering if we don't think with the Czech-German declaration and future fund and so on, something like the end of the Czech-German history came, and then it's not necessary to do more, because everybody knows this is our goal, and everybody is clever enough to support this stand of the mutual relations. But I think as the end of history is wasn't right, so I think it's really necessary to it's some kind of never-ending effort, and I absolutely agree with Mr. Ambassador. And as I said, I think, and we have good experience in Future Fund. We should identify common issues, common interest, and invite people from both countries to cooperate on these issues. Now our topic of the year is now sustainability. It's called The Future is Now, and it's about the sustainability, and it's also the way how we can find new players and to win them for the Czech-German cooperation. And I think this is the one way, and it's a way not to have only this touristic context, but also context about some issues. And I think, and I see it every day, there is really a lot of to do at the borders. We will discuss probably this question. The part of the question is also if the regions are enough homogeneous, and we see every day that also the effect of the pandemic was more in a psychological way. The people said, okay, that the border, it was terrible, but in the practical way, for a lot of them, there was no different. And I think it indicates that the relations are not so close at the border as we can expect. So I think it would be also great, but it must be something bottom up, that there some common identity, and I don't know. In the pandemic, every group was a little pressure group, but there was no pressure group for the borderland. So I think we can also think about some new platform to articulate just the interests of the people there. But I'm not speaking about some intergovernmental commissions, but it must be an interest of the people there. And I think we have also, as we were speaking about it, some kind of image problem there. So I think tourism is not the way, but I think we can try to create some interesting leisure time events where the people can just talk together and have fun together, and then I think that
we can all go to Rojana, for example.
Sorry?
We can all go to Rojana, for example.
Yeah, so it's cool. Yeah, you know, if we find money for it, so we are ready to create such a program.
Sure. Next question, please.
Yeah, I was just thinking it's really more of a comment, not that much of a question. I think there is no shortcut to getting to this brave new world of great relationships. And it will take time, and we should think of the quality of teaching, language education, and school exchanges. And I know it's all the programs that are supported, but we should think a lot about how languages are taught at this country and what's the quality of the teaching in general. And just a question, the Chamber of Commerce is supporting the rise in wages, pay rise for teachers. There might be a new law to guarantee a specific pay rise for teachers for the future to hold. So maybe that would be the question. Do you think it might, in the long term, in the long run, improve Czech-German relationships if because of the rise in quality of teaching and teachers, we could see also more enthusiasm for exchange, for projects that would really change the relationships in long term? Or do you think it would only cost more money, but it would in the end bring not so much as I would expect?
I hope I heard you well, because I don't only remember a lot, but I'm old and I begin to have a problem with the hearing, and there is an echo here. But if I understand it correctly, well, the question has an obvious answer. In the long term, yes. If I also understood you correctly, you said that we as Chamber, we are supporting the increase of the salaries for the teachers. Thank you very much. Yes, we do. But now, again, we probably approach some kind of a short-term barrier, I hope only short-term, for another year or two, where me as a representative of the business, I must have a question mark on the fact that the public sector wages and salaries are today higher than are the average wages in the private sector. This is not good. But you are right, teachers are the future of the country. And every improvement on the quality of the teachers has to do also with the economic power of the country, and has to do in the long run in the relation with the most important, both politically and economically, neighbors. And who else than Germany it is? So, well, the answer to your question is yes, with that caveat that for the moment, given also the budget restrictions, we probably reach the barrier where we will, after the elections, I don't expect that before the elections, we will have to stop for a year or two to increase the wages to those parts of the society which apparently needed that given the past, but at the same time help a little bit to increase the wages in the private sector through the investment.
Please, Tomáš Jelínek, briefly.
I think that the language issue is a very important one, but it's not only about the teachers and the offer, but especially about the demand and about the motivation. And from our preliminary findings now from this research, the Germans said they would prefer not the right language to learn the language, but to have some communication courses, or some way how to be able to communicate on some basic way, but not just to learn Czech. And I think that's the way how to think about it, to make the right offer for the right demand.
Let me come to the question that's coming up online. Let me reformulate it, because let's say if the wages in the Czech Republic grow faster than in Germany, will the next generation be less willing to travel to Germany for work? We are talking about those famous pendlers. Or are the border regions so interconnected that for people there, the border is no longer there? It's probably for Mr. Schnake and Mr. Dlouhý to answer.
I think, first of all, I think for people which are now in the status as a pendlers at this moment, and we have also this movement from today, what I see, from Czech Republic to Germany, a little much more smaller from Germany to Czech Republic, but also from countries which are wider or a little bit more in the east, also to the Czech Republic, because I think the same amount of people are traveling from the east to Czech Republic and then from Czech Republic to Germany. From my point of view, it's more a question, it's depending, yes, on wages, but on the other side also about the qualified people. Because in the future, what I see in Europe especially, and this means also in these border regions, it's a question of how much qualified people you have for your work. And we have today in all regions about which we are speaking, too less people with the right qualification. So I would say a little bit independent from the wages. I see really that this interchange over the borders will be ongoing forward and not so depending on what wages we have in these areas.
If we consider a wider region than only the border areas, I agree with you. And this is going to be a European issue, the structural problem in terms of supply of labor. There might be plenty of labor, but not exactly in the structure as the entrepreneurs are going to demand. And we will have to sort it out by importing the labor outside Europe. In border region, in the short to medium term, I'm convinced that it's now a question of a wage. And most of the pendlers, which really cross the border in the distance, I don't know, 30 to 50 kilometers, I used to have a very strong relation for more than 15 years to Děčín area, for instance. And if you cross to Dresden and you go to the hotel, to the restaurant, in most of the cases you find a Czech waiter or the Czech receptionist or a Czech, the chambermaid, etc. So I believe that in the short term, it's a indeed question of the wage differences and also the problem that these are the lower qualified jobs which are being demanded on the German side. That's why I was a little bit afraid of making a too quick conclusion that our wages are approaching very quickly. Maybe my figure 45, I was then thinking about that, might be 2-3 years old, but even if it is more, still the convergence of GDP is much faster than convergence of the real wages. So the pendlers will be here at least for the next 5 years.
Yeah, this concludes our conference, and as a moderator, I'm probably expected to end on an optimistic note, as Mr. Schnaake would no doubt like. But let me end on a sad note, because as most of you probably know, Ambassador Israngem is leaving Prague this summer after 4 years. As a journalist, of course, it's not up to me to praise any politician or civil servant, but let me make an exception and really thank Ambassador Israngem for excellent job, excellent cooperation here in Prague. It was really a pleasure to deal with you always, all the time. I'm sure that for your interlocutors at the official level as well. Let me wish you all the best for the future, and hopefully you you will come to Prague regularly as a non-interested person in future, and hopefully you spend a great time here. Thank you so much, and thanks to all the viewers and all the participants in our debate. This concludes our today's forum. Thank you.
Thank you very much.